You are about to experience the vocabulary lesson for the science fair. And these words are really awesome. I put together this slideshow, and in addition to learning what the words mean, and some of them you'll be familiar with, I want you to work on um, practicing identifying the different types of sentences. What kinds of sentences? Simple, compound, and complex sentences. You should have already just watched a video talking about what these kinds of sentences are, and I'll point out some of the various sentences in the definitions of the words, but you are going to try to identify the types of sentences in the sample sentences, okay, for each word, using each vocabulary word. And according to these directions, you should have written 1 through 10 on a piece of paper, and then as we go through each slide, you will write down the words simple, compound, or complex, depending on which you think the sample sentence is. Okay, here we go. Humor. When you have a sense of humor, it means you enjoy telling and hearing about things that are funny. And this sentence is a complex sentence because when you have a sense of humor it's a dependent clause. That's not a complete sentence. However, the second half of the sentence after the comma is, it means you enjoy telling and hearing about things that are funny. That is an independent clause. It could be a completely separate sentence. You could get rid of the beginning dependent clause, and this could be its own sentence. Now, you shouldn't necessarily write the word complex yet, because this is not the sample sentence. This is simply the definition. Here comes the sample sentence. Oh, first, I provided antonyms for each word this time. I thought that might be just good for you to understand the antonym means opposite. So the opposite of humor is what? Serious. This guy looks like he's laughing out loud. It takes a good sense of humor to let someone play a joke on you. Now, that's number one. Do you think that that's simple, compound, or complex? You write it on next to number one. Abroad. If you go abroad, you go overseas to a different country. That is another complex sentence because if you go abroad is a dependent clause. That's not a complete sentence or complete thought. You go overseas to a different country. It's kind of awkward, but that is an independent clause. You could, as a subject, as a verb, it even has a direct object, that could be a complete sentence. So that you would say is a complex sentence. Now don't write that for number two. Wait until you see the sample sentence. And before that, we've got an antonym. The opposite of going overseas is to stay home. A friend of mine had the opportunity to study abroad. She lived with a host family in Spain for a whole month. Both of these sentences are the same type of sentence. What type is it? Next to two, write simple, compound, or complex. Preparation. Preparation is everything you do to get ready for something. All of our preparation paid off when it was time to begin the competition. Do you think that that's a simple sentence, compound sentence, or complex sentence? Write one of those words next to number three. And the antonym for preparation would be unprepared, someone who did not get him or herself ready for something. Gimmick. If you want to get people's attention, you might use a gimmick or trick. You'll notice that many of the definition sentences here are complex sentences. If you want to get people's attention, that's a dependent clause. It's not a complete thought. You need the second half of this sentence. You might Gimmick is something that tries to trick you into making a decision. Oftentimes it's used for like selling you on something. Don't fall victim to the gimmick of a humongous sale when the product is not all that great. Do you think this is simple, compound, or complex? Write the word next to number 4. The antonym for a gimmick is obvious. Something is obvious, or there's no trickery involved. Sprinkled. Something that has been sprinkled has had tiny pieces or drops of something scattered all over it. If it's sprinkled outside, then it only rained a tiny bit, like little drops of rain droplets. Okay, here's the sentence. With my fish on a diet, I sprinkled less flakes than usual into the tank. Do you think that's simple, compound, or complex? Write the word next to number 5. And here's the antonym. Dumped on. Instead of sprinkling, if you dumped something, small pieces of stuff onto something, or if it poured outside, that is very opposite of sprinkling. Number 6, expand. When things expand, they get bigger. My mom is constantly suggesting I expand my reading repertoire to include more genres than just mystery. This could be a tricky one. Is it simple, compound, or complex? Does it have 2 separate sentences combined by a coordinating conjunction? Does it have an independent and a dependent clause that needs the independent clause? Or is it just a simple sentence with one subject and one verb? Antonym. To shrink or to contract. This word contract is spelled the same way but sounds different for other meanings, like a contract. But to get smaller is you pronounce it contract. Number 7, erupt. Something that erupts breaks out of something that holds it in. Often used for volcano, but you can use it figuratively for other things. After working at ignoring my brother for 5 minutes, I couldn't help but erupt with, "Be quiet." Is that simple, compound, or complex? And the opposite or antonym for erupt might be to bottle something up. Number 8, thorough. If you do something in a thorough way, you do a careful and complete job. It will take a thorough search of the house to find the missing keys. The antonym of thorough would be incomplete. If you didn't do a very complete job, the keys were right there. Number 9, deliberation. I was really surprised that this word was in our vocabulary list, but it's pretty awesome vocab. Deliberation is thought and discussion that comes before making a decision. Deliberation. It was only with much deliberation that the money was used to build a walking trail. The antonym of deliberation would be immediately, without any discussion. Number 10, and this is the last one, grainy. If something is grainy, it is not smooth. Rather than one color, there are many spots of one or more other colors. Old photos that are not very clear often look grainy. Do you think that's simple, compound, or complex? And the antonym for grainy would be clear or solid. Like there aren't specks in the photo or picture or whatever it is you're working on. And here are the definitions that I used in the slideshow. They're all in one place. You could take a look at that and you could study that because there will be a quiz the following day. Good luck.